All right, this question came from the west end of the county, way up Highway 50, and I won't disclose exactly where, but or whom, but the general concern is raised, and you're all probably well aware of this, that since the concentration of population in Fremont County happens to be over here in Canyon City and Florence and Penrose, that a lot of the services and obviously a lot of the budget allocations are concentrated in the population areas, which is to be expected. But the question is, well, are you going to forget about us who live out in the county and the further reaches of the county and treat us as irrelevant, or will we get at least our fair shake in this arrangement? And that's a tough one. Wow, thanks for the easy softball questions. But in answer to that, there's two things that come to mind. First and foremost, to be perfectly fair here, when we use a democratic kind of system for our government, that means that a certain number of votes which come from a certain population density have a certain amount of clout. And that is the problem that is basically being addressed. And then the second part of that is that the way that you would allocate funding, in other words, let's do this on a perfect percentile basis. There is a certain amount of tax money that's certainly coming from anything that comes under the jurisdiction of Fremont County. So some services must be rendered for some taxation, and some representation needs to be rendered for that taxation. Otherwise we could have a real tea party going on, right? So I believe that you have to do that wisely and proportionately in such a way that just because the larger crowd yells louder doesn't, or has more clout, doesn't mean that they would always get their way. In fact, our Constitution and a lot of the safeguards and things that were built into our constitutional republic were done for that very reason. Otherwise, you have the same as mob rule, which democracy is mob rule. Democracy really means the larger crowd always gets what they want, and the minority always gets run over. That's why we don't have a pure democracy. We have a democratic republic. So there's a little clarification there. So that means that if that's the case, and it were carried out accurately at the federal level or state level, then at our county level, the same principle should apply. So that would mean if there were a certain thing going on that would adversely affect people in the western part of the county, that wouldn't necessarily adversely affect the greater population in the eastern part of the county, then we should actually level that weight out, make a fair balance out of it by saying, well, gee, there's no harm's going to come to the people east, so they really don't care. But the people who have a stake, who are out west, well, then instead of just saying, well, there's more of these guys out east, we need to level the playing field a little bit. And again, so wisely make decisions about those things so that the minority isn't always basically taking it, wrong. So fair is a difficult word, but I'm using the term wise. I think that just because the greater population is located, obviously Canyon City and the other cities, doesn't give them necessarily a greater weight. It just depends on if there's any harms. If there's any harms would come to them by not doing something, then you'd have to weigh that out. And I know the specific question had to do with law enforcement, did it not? And road maintenance. Well, that is tough. The road maintenance issue, very difficult. Obviously, on a county road, I don't know how many times a year we'd have to get with Mr. Adamic and say, okay, how many times per season can he grade that road? and effectively do that, and cost effectively do that, and how much of the time are we going to say, look, it's a county road, we try to grade it as much as we can, but it's going to get potholes after the rain and the snow, right? And those are difficult questions. And for law enforcement, believe me, I've spoken with the sheriff, and believe me, it's very difficult because you've got all of these square miles of territory that you have to police, that you have to patrol, but you can only be in one place at a time. So really, to be fair, no matter where his deputies find themselves, someone is going to say they were not near enough, they were not close enough, they were not ready to respond enough, and the only alternative to that would be, of course, to vastly, increase the number of patrol deputies, which would, of course, not be in any way cost effective. So, having said that, I think there is a way, and I think that there are means of being as fair and as equal in our coverage, both of potholes and of patrolling, as could possibly be done. But even at the end of the day, no matter how fairly you do it or how reasonably you do it, somebody's not going to have the coverage either of their pothole or of their patrolling scenario that they would want, because we cannot have a squad car or a patrol car everywhere all the time. Nor, for that matter, is there any way fiscally to have a grader running 24/7 or graders running 24/7 on every road everywhere. So it's difficult, but again, I believe that these things can be improved if we are very conscientious and diligent to look at those budgets and say, hey, how much are we putting everywhere? And is everybody in the extreme portions of the county actually being accounted for in this? Which I'm sure they are, but again, it's a question of equity, and very difficult one though, and I don't know that anybody's going to really be fully satisfied no matter what we do on that, at least immediately. But thank you for that question.